Andy Mitten, good morning. Can you hear us, Andy?
Morning, how are you doing?
Yeah. What do you make of that, first of all? I guess I'm going to start with a simple question.
I thought it was a good performance and a bad result. And, you know, Manchester United losing a game of football is not something I would normally welcome, and I'm not welcoming it. But I saw positives at Old Trafford yesterday, which I'd not seen last season. Arsenal have not lost a game in the Premier League since last November. United didn't score, but Matheus Cunha, one of the new signings, had a good game. Brian Mbeumo had a good game. There was a lot of optimism about. So normally when you speak to me after a Manchester United defeat, and you do normally speak to me after a Manchester United defeat, hopefully this season we can have a chat after they've won a game. I would be a little bit more despondent, but I just think it's going to take time to click together. Manchester United were 15th last season. It was really, really bad. And they're not just going to press a button and switch. So I was on the pre-season tour of the United States, as well as watching the games and seeing some good football and some pretty dodgy passages of football, if I'm honest. I also spoke to a lot of people inside the club. I spoke to lots of players. And those players would say to me if a lot was amiss, but they were saying to me sort of off the record, it's much better. The mood's much better.
Right.
We still need new players. So, yeah, it's an incomplete work, Manchester United. I don't expect the team to win the league this year, but I would expect a significant improvement on last year. And what I saw yesterday would lead me to believe that will be the case.
Other than a change in personnel, what did you see that was different about Manchester United yesterday compared to Ruben Amorim's United last season?
I thought some of the attacking play was good. I thought Matheus Cunha was Manchester United's best player. He's prepared to run at defenders, to take defenders on. I thought there was some other pretty promising performance. I think Dorgu was a better player. Manchester United are fitter. United should benefit from the fact that there's no European football this year. The weeks will drag, you know, when there's been a defeat and you've got 7 days to the next game, and there needs to be a narrative every single day, and often it is negative, they're going to drag. But Casemiro was good in the first half. Mason Mount, good. Saying good, I'm not saying great. You know, I'm praising people for their off-the-ball work. I should really be praising people for the finishes, for the goals, for their assists. So I'm not getting carried away at all. And it was frustrating walking out of Old Trafford yesterday. It was a beautiful day in Manchester. There's the whole side apart from the game, the community. I met people from all over Ireland yesterday at the game who'd come over, who were full of enthusiasm. And that is a good thing, you know, actually going to a match and seeing people. Ruben Amorim was a little bit tetchy in the post-match press conference.
Yes.
I wasn't actually in it because I was waiting in the mix zone, but no player turned up. But my colleagues were in it. So an incomplete afternoon.
Why do you think Ruben Amorim was tetchy?
Because he was asked a question about the goalkeeping situation at Manchester United, and the match-winning goal was decided by weak goalkeeping, in my opinion. There would be plenty of Manchester United fans who would argue that it was a foul, and that's absolutely fine. And he sprung to the defence of his goalkeeper, Altay Bayande, and managers tend to do that. But Manchester United have a goalkeeping issue, in my opinion, and that was clear. That was clear yesterday against Arsenal. I think Arsenal targeted the goalkeeper. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I would be worried if he's Manchester United's goalkeeper every week this season. And I say there's an issue. It's because Andre Onana was less than convincing, like most Manchester United players were last season. So the goalkeeping area is an issue. Just as the number 9 area was an issue, Manchester United went out and brought Benjamin Šeško. He came on yesterday, pretty muted, as was Victor Gyökeres for Arsenal. You get that first game of the season. Nobody's up to speed. He's coming off the bench. I still think there will be activity in the transfer window with Manchester United.
Do you think that activity will be centred on a new goalkeeper?
I think that's a difficult one because I think the money's been spent, and United wanted to sign Baleba from Brighton, and my understanding right throughout that, speaking to the people involved, were it's going to be really difficult to get this done because Brighton will probably want a ridiculous amount of money. not without justification, because he's a very good player. I think United need to sell, and will sell, or do deals on some of the players. That will free up more funds. I wouldn't be surprised if a new goalkeeper came in, be it on loan. But I've got no hard evidence at the moment that a new goalkeeper is coming.
The midfield situation, you said Casemiro played well. I think that is a consensus that he did a very specific thing in the first half, and it worked quite well. Like, is it possible to have an objective view on Casemiro's role now in the club, or is the hangover of what's gone before too strong? I suppose, what is it possible that he actually has a long-term this season, just like that he's actually going to be a mainstay week in, week out, that he'll get picked to start, and that Manchester United fans will be happy with that?
It's absolutely possible. He looks fitter, he looks leaner. He had a bad first half of last season. He was much more effective in the Europa League. You might say that's where his standards are now. And if Manchester United don't bring in another midfielder, and Casemiro is playing well, and I think he played well yesterday, the issue is if he gets exposed, which happened several times last season, teams playing around him, that's when very quickly people will revert to the tropes that his legs have gone. He's gone. He needs to be played in a system where he's got legs supporting him. He can pick a wonderful pass. He made some very good interceptions yesterday. He reads the game very well. But the fact that we're even talking about him shows that there are doubts there with him. He's got a year left at Manchester United. I'd be really surprised right now if he's at Manchester United in a year's time, because he's one of the best paid footballers in the world. But baby steps with Casemiro this season. You know, if he plays well at Fulham, and then he plays well at Grimsby, and then he plays well against Burnley, confidence in him will grow. But again, he had a good finish to last season, at least in the Europa League. This was against Arsenal yesterday. This was against a team with Zubimendi and Odegaard and Declan Rice and all these top midfielders. My worry yesterday was Manchester United's midfield. I felt that Manchester United did okay. Again, we're saying phrases like okay. You said quite good. This is a level that we're at with Manchester United at the moment.
That midfield problem, like, I think people understand that Bruno Fernandes is lavishly gifted. I'm just not sure that he's going to be a deep-lying central midfielder over the course of the season, that gets the best out of him, that offers the most protection for the defence, and that he's the legs alongside Casemiro. It still feels like maybe they're a little bit top-heavy now, and that him as a 10 might be better for Šeško even.
Bruno Fernandes should be closer to goal because he's such a strong creative force. But when you have 55 number 10 players, they've got to be accommodated somehow for Manchester United. So top heavy, yeah, you're right. It wasn't his best game yesterday, Bruno. But there is an issue in midfield. That's why Manchester United are trying to sign Baleba. They hope that issue would be averted with Ugarte. Ugarte played very well pre-season in New Jersey against West Ham. I spoke to him after the game. This was a new Ugarte, happier, second season at Manchester United. The type of things you would expect them to say, but you'd also believe what he was saying. And then he had a really poor game against Everton in Atlanta, and he came on yesterday and he wasn't very good either. So I don't think they're completely given up on players like Ugarte, but it's needs must for Ruben Amorim. He wanted Premier League proven players. That's why he went for Mbumo and Matheus Cunha. No signings were welcomed. Bit more of a risk going with Šeško, but there's not a load of strikers about. This is still a team in transition, and they're going to be. They take an offer right now for Rasmus Højlund, and there'll be some sympathy for him from Manchester United fans. But Manchester United need to make clinical decisions. There simply cannot be a repeat of last season. Manchester United need to get back into European football. Whichever competition that is.
If the transfer window closed today, Andy, would you be somewhat satisfied with the squad that's available to Ruben Amorim? Or I know we've hinted at here already, but just in your opinion as a journalist, is there an area where they absolutely have to improve before the window closes? Is it Baleba position in that midfield, and is it the goalkeeper? What do you actually think yourself?
If you would have asked me at the start of June that you bring in these 3 players, yes, I would be satisfied with that. But because it's an incomplete team, I'm never going to be satisfied, because you can still see that the goalkeeping situation is an issue. You need a central midfielder. I know further on they're looking in the central defensive areas. So I'm not going to be satisfied while Manchester United are losing at home to anybody. But I think the club did well bringing in those 3 players. And there was competition. Newcastle United offered more money for Šeško, and they brought him in. I think they negotiated pretty well on him. Given the financial constraints which Manchester United have had, I'm satisfied with the free signing so far. But you're asking me after the first game of the season.
Yeah, exactly.
If you'd asked me after the first game last season, I would have said pretty similar.
Yeah.
Because you have this idealised version that they're all going to be a success.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, history in the last post-Ferguson years has shown that most signings are not a success. As we speak today, I think they will be.
You were in this very studio with myself last year. We were talking about that fans were very excited about Manuel Ugarte and that he was going to be the answer. I dare say that a lot of those fans maybe hadn't seen too much of Ugarte, but they had heard that he was great. And I do wonder, and I don't know if you know the information about, why do these players consistently sign for the club? So, for example, Benjamin Šeško, who Newcastle were interested in as well. From your knowledge, like, besides the money that's on offer, is it because of the esteem of the club and the brand, and that they feel that they can be the player that finally helps them change their fortunes around? Why do United consistently appeal?
There's that element of ego. And
Yeah.
it's the same with coaches. Manchester United are a huge football club. They're one of the biggest football clubs in the world. So they're always going to be very attractive. And Liverpool will always be very attractive for similar reasons. Manchester is a good city. That came into play when Šeško had a choice between Newcastle and Manchester as a place to live in, just as Barcelona often benefit as a place to live in because players want to move there. And money is another factor. Manchester United pay well, and they pay on time. There are leagues in Europe where, in theory, you should be getting paid well, but you might not be getting paid on time.
Yeah.
The Premier League is hugely attractive as well. So you've got all of these reasons. And then when you look at Manchester United's squad, there's a lot of top players there, and you're playing in front of 73,000 every week. This is very, very attractive to footballers. It's not Real Madrid for most footballers, but it also depends what your memories of Manchester United are. They're just about hanging on to players, signing players who remember when they were a great team.
Yeah.
If nothing's won in the next 10 years, that's also going to go. But the bottom line is Manchester United are absolutely massive.
You know Marcus Rashford well from over the years, having spoken with him. I wonder what your thoughts are on what he said last week to Gary Lineker and Micah Richards. I don't know if you heard it, but basically the summary was that he was analysing the club situation and the very, I would say, accurately and almost like an objective pundit. But of course, he's so implicated in what he had been complaining about.
Yeah, I saw Marcus's debut last week in Barcelona, and I think he had some points in that interview. I didn't watch the whole interview. I read about it. And I also think he should also take some of the blame for his role in Manchester United underperforming, as should all of the players. Marcus Rashford was and is one of the best paid footballers in the world. I'm never going to argue that he's been a success in the last 2 seasons for Manchester United. But there's mitigation. And he pointed that out. Had he been there under Ferguson, things would have probably been very different for Marcus Rashford. But I'm not comfortable with blaming everyone but yourself.
Yeah. In terms of the players leaving before the window closes, who's going? So we have Rasmus Højlund. They're still trying to look for a club for Anthony, I assume. Jadon Sancho's linked with Roma. Who else?
Tyrell Malacia. You've got Sancho, you've got Anthony, you've got Rashford, who's gone. The bomb squad, basically. The players who are playing no part at the moment. Some of them are training alone, not far from where I am in Manchester. There will be a demand for Anthony, who was exceptionally good for Real Betis last year. Jadon Sancho, Roma are definitely interested. Højlund, his stock hasn't been enhanced since joining Manchester United, but there's not many young strikers around who've proved themselves in Serie A as he did. Malacia is left-footed, so it's quite. Someone said to me there'll be demand for him in Holland and Germany, and that someone is high up in the transfer chain in football, knows far more than I do about that. So I think it will be a combination of loans, of sales. Manchester United would love them all to be sales, but when you finish 15th, you're not in a strong selling position.
No.
You can see the money that Liverpool and Manchester City and Chelsea have got for some of their players. Manchester United are not in that position.
No. Like, is the most valuable asset that's saleable, let's say, for Manchester United, one player that we haven't mentioned yet, is it Alejandro Garnacho? There was a mural.
Yes.
There was a mural of him
I'm
defaced.
talking to you then.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm missing someone out here. Who is it? Who is it? Why is he not coming to me? And you do the mention him. Yeah, I mean, he spoke to Chelsea in January. The issue then was a financial one, as far as I was aware, with his wages. Laced with a little bit of sadness because he should be an exciting future prospect for Manchester United. Really well recruited, came through the academy system, and he's leaving. One misstep too many for Ruben Amorim. Manchester United's view on him is we should be getting 50 million. Chelsea's view is we'll offer you £2.65 because we like to go low on the players we're buying, and we like to charge 100 millions for the one that we're selling. Again, compromise is needed, not just on the fee, but on from the agents. With a lot of Manchester United outgoing players, with their wages, Garnacho's a little bit different because he's on a relatively low wage because he came through the youth system.
What's the issue with Garnacho? Why did he not click with Amorim?
I think there's he's made several mistakes, all of them quite minor. So his defenders, and these people do exist, and that's absolutely fine, will say, look, he's just a young brat. And the minor issues are his social media output, his family's social media output. It seemed to undermine Ruben Amorim. And a couple of incidents with his behaviour where I think he's just seen as a little bit bratish and not the perfect fit for Ruben Amorim. I realised he wouldn't be the first footballer to make a mistake. So I started, when I spoke about him, by saying it's laced with a bit of sadness there. Remember last November, he went in a big sulk because he felt that Manchester United fans weren't behind him. So I spoke to him. That was a Leicester game at Old Trafford. I spoke to him in Spanish. I said, look, Manchester United fans are very supportive of you. Yeah. And I was later told the reason he's gone in a big sulk is because he's not been getting picked. It's nothing to do with the fans. Again, he's young. He's a young lad. And if he stayed, I wouldn't have a massive issue with that because he can be a really exciting player. He was a starter for Manchester United over the last couple of seasons. He scored some wonderful goals, but he's got to grow up. But then, what were you like when you were that age? What were we all like? Mistakes are made.
Yeah.
I think if you took phones out of the pockets of the Garnacho family, you would see an instant improvement. You shouldn't have the brother of a player commenting on social media. And that happened too many times. You can make 2 or 3 mistakes at Manchester United, but if it becomes repeat behaviour, then the manager, and it's the manager's shout this, it's nobody else's shout. I personally wouldn't have sold him. This is the manager who sees him every day going, you're not in my plans. Also, they can get good money for him in theory because he's come to the academy.
That's the...
I feel like in the soap opera surrounding Alejandro Garnacho and whatever about his attitude, it's almost forgotten about to analyse him as a player. And you've seen it all, Andy, over the years in terms of wingers and forwards at United, with a club that famously loves wingers. Like, where does his actual level of ability fit in? Like, is this a massive shame, put it that way?
I wouldn't say a massive shame. There's a sad element to it. I think he's a very good player. I don't know if he's a top player. I think he's another one of these Manchester United players. Because you play for such a big club, you get hyped beyond your actual ability. I personally enjoy watching him play, watching him run at players. I think he's great when he's coming off the bench as well, but he's not Lionel Messi. I don't know how good he's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if we're speaking in a year's time and he's doing really well at Chelsea. Equally, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not even getting in the team. I think that is still to be proven by him.
I think the thing is, if you came through now at Manchester United when they've just signed Cunha and Mbumo, and he was coming off the bench for 10, 15 minutes, as opposed to having to play 10 games in a row and doing your growing up in public, you know, that would be a totally different scenario. If there's some way of explaining to him that actually this is the time that you could have your most impact here, but it looks as if that ship has sailed.
Yeah, you're right. And similar echoes of the Rashford stuff. You know, in a different world, in a more stable football club, it would be a different outlook for them. But Manchester United finished 15th last season, and the collateral damage from that is that Manchester United feel that they've got to rip most of it up and start again. And the new decision makers at the club, they're doing it their way, whether it's the staff in the back office or whether it's the football side of things. And a softer environment might say to Rasmus Højlund, you've got another year or two. Manchester United don't have that time. 15th, the fact that the fans are still on side with the coach after finishing 15th astounds outsiders. It really does. But they are. Every away game singing his name. There's a little bit of desperation there because they want him to succeed. But also there's a belief that he will succeed. And he speaks like they think. He's so brutally honest that they've really bought into that. But he needs wins. He doesn't just need good performances like against Arsenal. He needs wins. And they've got to start coming this month. And I think they will do. I think Fulham United have done well there in recent years. Burnley have just been promoted. So I think they will. I think things are starting to look better for Manchester United.
Will we see a different version of Ruben Amorim this season? Was yesterday's post-match press conference a sign of things to come? Because, Andy, the smile was gone, but the energy remained.
I think he's winding it in a little bit in terms of his emotion after games, this sort of brutal honesty where he puts his heart on his sleeve and then he realises, actually, I'm not in Portugal anymore. What I say is going to reverberate around the world. And if it can be spun in a negative way, it's going to be even bigger. I think he's a bit more careful with what he's saying. But again, he's an excellent communicator. I sat down with him in Chicago 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you come out the room thinking, if you played for that man, you'd want to run through brick walls for him. And he looks good. He's youthful. He's brimming with ideas. He's got a very difficult job. I think there is some sympathy for him with that. And you know, the abuse that people like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got when they were Manchester United manager, I think history has reflected well against people like that. It's a really, really difficult job. But he's almost helped himself by being so bad last season that if Manchester United were to finish 6th this season, play decent football, it would be seen as relative success. If you would have said to me 3 years ago, Manchester United finishing 6th, that's almost like instant dismissal for the manager. The bar has been moved lower, which gives him some room to manoeuvre. You
mentioned Ole Gunnar Solskjaer there. Have you been in touch with him lately? I know you have a great relationship with him. He was in Ireland recently, of course. His Besiktas side plays St Patrick's Athletic, and he talked about the Republic of Ireland job too, and how he was very much in talks with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can tell you now because it's out in the open. But last year, at some point, this story goes out that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's back in talks for the Republic of Ireland job. And I put a tweet out basically saying, and that's because he couldn't or wouldn't, saying he had spoken to the Republic of Ireland about the job and he was very respectful of the people he spoke to and of the country, but it wasn't the job for him. And then that sort of killed the story, which I knew it would. But you also had like 5% of people going, he's just making it up. How does he know what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's thinking? I'm like, well, because I just spoke to him 10 minutes ago and he's got no real reason to lie to me. But I did speak to him last week, and what I told him about St Pat's, because if I'm not mistaken, Paul McGrath is from the area of Dublin where Pats play. And I only realised that on the day of the game. I tried to find a stream to watch it and I couldn't. And then I got a message from him after the match saying, I wish you'd told me that before the game, which I did do, but he'd not looked at his phone. Because I think it's quite nice when people like him know about the environment that he's playing in. And I came to Bow Shelbourne in May. I find it really interesting what's happening in the Republic of Ireland with the football there. I was trying to watch Derry City in a few weeks' time on a Friday night, but I can't bring it all together. I think the facilities are all over the place. There really needs some serious investment.
Yep.
I think the crowds, the enthusiasm, I think it's in a really good place, and I love to see that. And that Bows Shelbourne game, I saw so much good there. And I'm a fan of football at all levels. This week I'll go to loads of lower level games in England, but get some new stands built because there's a demand for it.
Yeah, you've nailed it there. That's a pretty much spot-on summary of where the League of Ireland is at the moment. Damien Duff is a big loss to the league as well, but they still have Stephen Kenny and Stephen Bradley too, so it's in a good place at the moment. And Pats did really well in Turkey. They went 2-0 up against Besiktas in what was not their strongest side either, so the quality is improving, but it's frustrating because you come to Ireland a lot, you know Irish fans very well. We love our football, but we don't necessarily take it too seriously on a professional level.
I thought that the people I spoke to, the Bows fans, and I spoke to all the people at the club, and the variety of people involved at the clubs was absolutely fantastic. Dan at Bows, who I think looks after the kneecap as well. And then I spoke to a gentleman from Shelbourne who said he was a big Manchester United fan. He was going to Bilbao. And I said, I didn't realise there's a direct flight from Dublin to Bilbao. I said, no, I've got my own plane. Oh, okay. But I spoke to Damien Duff, and he said, I know that voice, so obviously he listens to Off the Ball. And I spoke to loads of people. I went under the main stand, and I heard all the songs at half-time, and I thought, yeah, when I write about this piece, I'll call these rebel songs in a diplomatic way, but brilliant. And, I got recognised quite a lot there. Free Garda pulled me to one side, and all he wanted to talk about was Manchester United, and it was brilliant. And I just felt that, and I love it, because there's some places I go and watch football where I don't feel that.
Yeah.
And Dalymont, I've probably pronounced it wrong. I walked there right from the south side of Dublin. I walked right the way through, and I just really enjoyed it. And I think the culture there is strong. And I think if those if you can do what like Shamrock Rovers have done with their ground and keep building having those sort of stadiums at old 8, 10, 12,000, you can grow the league, because I absolutely think there's a real good potential there. And the rivalries are strong. I was in Galway a year ago and made the mistake of saying, I've just been to Galway United, really met some nice people here, and just got loads of abuse from Dublin. I'm like, look, I'm not... And now I'm getting people saying to me, who's your team? I'm like, I've not got one. But I was thinking of like just picking a random team just to wind everybody up. But it's good. I'm in Sligo in October. I've been to Cork City's ground. I want to go to all the grounds over there. And I think it's good. And I was really intrigued also at the games. Did Linfield play Shelbourne recently?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that fascinates me as a journalist.
They're gonna play again.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry, Linfield got beaten. That's right. Sorry, it's the team from the Azores.
Yeah, you enjoyed saying that. You enjoyed saying that.
They were slated to play again, but it all passed off without incident, which I think is largely a sign of where we're going with these things. And it's great to have you back. I promise we'll get you on the next time Manchester United win. How about that?
Yeah, that's great. I'll tell you one more thing about my trip to Dublin. John O'Shea saw that I was there and told me that I must abuse the Bohemians manager. And he said, tell him he's absolutely useless.
Alan Reynolds.
And I thought, John clearly knows him. So after the game, I said to him, yeah, I've got a message here that you're absolutely useless. And he just turned around and he went, John O'Shea, he's not even from Waterford like he says. So I've just seen all these tiny little quirks and rivalries everywhere. So it was coming from a good place. So it's good that people are taking notice, and I'll be back.
Good stuff, Andy. Great to have you with us. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers.
I do wonder if Manchester United will finish the season with the team they have at the moment. Let's say there's no more signings, right?
Yeah. Well, it's very likely that is the case too, I would say.
I think there'll be some last-minute loan deals for midfielders
maybe
and centre-backs.
I'd say he's just concerned, like, what are they going to do? Like, if Sancho doesn't
So
go
they
to
are playing
Roma.
midfield. Sorry,
It's an infield this week, isn't it?
how did I mix that up? Anyway,
It's
apologies.
on TV.
Of course it is, yeah.
They need to...
After your campaign, they were listening.
Yeah, they listened, yeah. Sancho, if Sancho doesn't go to Roma or anyone else for that matter, and then Anthony stays, but he'll have a decision to make there like this. Sure, Sancho gets his own lunch boxes. I think he's concerned with getting rid of people, I'd say.
Sorry, okay, so let me rephrase my question. The bomb squad are gone. They're not coming back into the team.
In this...
So that group he had yesterday available to him,
Yeah.
is that the same, is that his first choice?
Out of who's available to them outside of the bomb squad. Yeah, maybe like they might switch up the holding midfielder a bit. Like they might go between Casemiro and Ugarte and maybe Menu. I don't know what's happened there. And then Sesko will start. Sometimes the Mount will be on the bench. But that is probably, there's no one blindingly obvious. And Garnacho, of course, is gone as well. So
Mount can't play holding midfielder.
he can, but I think it depends on the opposition. I think, say, like I use West Ham as an example because they look like a bit of a rabble. Or like Burnley didn't start well, but like that's too reactionary because you're only going by the first weekend of the season. I'd say at home against the side they should be beaten, you could play him there. But like I don't think he'd be that concerned about the holding midfielder. It's more like the work ethic of the entire team. That's why he's bought like Cooney and Mbumo. Like these lads he wants runners. People are gonna try. So I don't think I would say he's not as consumed by the holding midfielder as maybe a lot of people are. He just wants a collective. But Baleba would be a great addition, and then they need to do whatever's happening with the goalkeeping situation. That feels like it needs to be resolved.
I think he's going to play Onana. He seems to like Onana. He backed him last
Donnarumma would be good to have.
It would be, yeah.
But it's hard to like they're slightly off Broadway this season. They had a high-profile first game of the season. Let's see what happens. But it's a weird thing that United lost, and Amorim was pissed off, and yet the mood feels better.
Well, they were good in patches last year, particularly in games they lost against good teams.
I know, but it's amazing the ability of time off and what that does to the perception of you. They lost the Europa League final to Spurs. That night and the next morning, there's serious questions about Amorim's future.
Yeah, but then they smashed Villa.
Well, that was a remarkable performance by Villa. And like they had a goal, but it wasn't the goal. It was like it should have been given, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, they got cheated.
That was what I remember from it. So but they still didn't do it. John McGinn was the first to say they didn't play well enough to win anyway. So it ended. So the last game of the season they won against Villa, and then Amorim on the pitch was like, "Sorry about that season. We'll come back again next season." And he's such an effective communicator, the way that Ten Hag wasn't. Even though Ten Hag is a perfectly good manager, it's all about perception. And I think the feeling at the moment is he's made good signings. They signed early as well in the summer. He's taking no shit anymore. The feeling is better. The reality might still actually be the same.